Welcome back. This is episode 4, and today we're starting by taking care of the damaged drywall in the hallway leading to the bedrooms and bathroom. Originally, there was beadboard paneling on these hallway walls, and we took that out in episode 1. What we're left with is some damaged drywall, but I don't want to take this out and hang new drywall. I think I can do a quick skim coat to repair this drywall way faster than I could hang, tape, mud, and sand new stuff. In certain places, the texture and paper is kind of peeling away, so we'll get rid of that. And in other spots, there's some adhesive still stuck on the wall. I found that the best all-around tool for me was just a wide, sharp chisel. I used a Harbor Freight one, that way if it got ruined, I wasn't worried about it. I wanted to take down any of the high points in the texture. That's why I basically scraped every surface of the walls. I also made sure to push my chisel in basically every direction, up and down, side to side, as well as crisscross to make sure and get every bit of loose texture or paper. And throughout this project, make sure and wear a dust mask or respirator. It's a messy one. All right, and now I'm gonna come back with a drywall sander that I just picked up off of Amazon. I used one of these on the Joshua Tree renovation and it was clutch. And it'll come in handy in this renovation as well. Now you could use a random orbit sander for this, but the wide surface area is gonna be faster and give me a flatter reference face. And the dust collection on my last one was terrible, so we'll see how well this one works. I opened up all the windows and doors in the house and then kicked on the sander and turned it up. Here at the beginning, you'll notice the sander wobbling a little bit, and that's because there was a pretty rough and heavy texture on the existing walls. But as I smoothed everything out, the sander started to run smoothly as well. As I sanded, it also loosened up quite a bit of small little flakes around the edges of these big ones. I'll be sure to leave a link to this sander down below in the description. It ended up working well for me. A random orbit sander, like I said, would do fine. I even believe a hand sander would work for a small to medium sized project like a single bedroom or this hallway. Sanding down the big bumps and scuffing up the wall will help the joint compound stick. It's also going to help us use less. We're basically backfilling to our raised portions, so if those raised areas are lower, we use less joint compound. Win-win. So there shouldn't be anything flaking off of our walls now, maybe just a little bit here and there. But this is where I should explain that I am not trying to build a thick layer of joint compound. Obviously, I want to backfill any negative spots like these, but where it's flat, I'm going to be squeegeeing with my trowel pretty hard. And that should give us a smooth base for our texture layer. There's some great drywall pros on YouTube, and I'll leave links to a couple of channels that I've learned from. My technique with a drywall knife or a trowel isn't as good as some other people, but I was able to get great results on this wall, so if I can do it not having those skills, then that gives me confidence that you can too. I started applying the first layer of joint compound with my wide 12 or 14 inch drywall trowel, but I soon switched to my 6 inch wide one, and that actually worked a little bit better for me. The trowel was still wide enough to cover the span of most of the negative spaces, but it didn't deflect as much with the small bumps and inconsistencies in the wall. I really wasn't expecting this to be the case, but I went with it. I did still keep that wide trowel close by. It was useful at times. But here in this close-up, you can kind of see my technique and what I'm doing. After I get a good spread of joint compound using light to medium pressure with my trowel, I come back with the flat edge with medium to hard pressure and squeegee it all flat. If I were doing a traditional skim coat, I would build a little bit thicker of a layer here and use less pressure, but since we're doing a texture on top, I don't want to build as thick of a layer. We just want to have enough material on the wall when it's dry that we'll be able to sand everything super flat. Okay, we're gonna let that dry overnight. We'll check back tomorrow. Hello again, I've got great news. All of our negative spaces are taken care of. We've got some color bleeding through, but that's no problem. Now I'm gonna come back with 180 grit on my drywall sander, and I'm gonna smooth out all of this joint compound. Having this drywall sander helped a lot, but sanding was still the more difficult step in this whole process. It was a little bit more time consuming, and you have to be pretty detail oriented. It's important that you don't have any raised ridges when you're done, and also that you don't move too slowly or focus on one spot and create divots, because then we're gonna have to backfill these in our next step. And if it's helpful, keep a straight edge close by to use as a reference on your wall. I'm gonna grab the random orbit sander just to get into the corners before I do a final coat, just to get any small imperfections. Our walls are super flat. There's just a few negative spots that I wanna touch up and make sure are perfect. We are going for zero build here. We only want to backfill any scratches or negative voids in our finish. That way we're left with something that's super duper smooth and flat. If you notice any high points while you're working, sand those back before you apply this coat. And if you've got any divots, now's the time to backfill them. And really quick, I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, Squarespace. If you need a website, an online store, or just a custom domain, Squarespace is your one-stop shop. And the best part is you need zero website building experience. Squarespace's designer templates look great on desktop, tablet, and mobile, no matter where customers find you. And they're packed with tons of great features, like no limits to the number of products you can sell using a Squarespace store, Squarespace's Video Studio mobile app that allows you to create high-level professional content for your website and social media, and do not forget member areas where you can package premium content behind a paywall, charging your members a monthly subscription fee. So to learn more, make sure and follow my link down in the description. That's squarespace.com/modernbuilds, where you can build out your entire Squarespace site before entering any of your credit card info. And then when it's time to make your website live, don't forget to use my code ModernBuilds for 10% off your first site, store, or domain through Squarespace. Thanks again to Squarespace. Now let's get back to this renovation. All right, checking in, and this wall looks amazing. We are dead flat, and even though there's a couple visual inconsistencies, you can't feel anything but a couple little trowel marks. I'm gonna touch this up with the hand sander, but we are ready for texture. You could probably do a third coat of joint compound and just spot check any low spots, and this would be a finished skim coat. But I want the texture of this hall to match the rest of the house, so we're gonna texture everything in a video very soon. Sanding joint compound is nothing like sanding wood or other materials. It's super easy to do, and you do not want to use very much pressure. And just like with the chisel earlier, it's great to sand in multiple directions. That way you get a flat finish. All right, that went so well, and it took exactly as long as I expected. I really thought this would take 2 half days, and it did. I prepped and did the first coat in a half a day, and then I sanded that and did a second coat the other half day. This extra little bit of sanding just took an hour, and we are done. And now that I know how well this process works, I'll be repeating it in the bathroom. It had the same beadboard paneling, but we've got to address this big hole in the wall before we take care of that. This whole cutout area used to be a small dividing wall in the bathroom that we also took out in episode 1. I used an angle grinder to take out any of the nails that were still visible, blocking the drywall. Then I attached some replacement pieces with drywall screws. And now we can get back to repairing where the paneling was. As I chiseled, I noticed that the drywall was just peeling away instead of flaking off like the texture. Okay, change of plans. This doesn't have the same kind of texture coat that the hallway did, and this paper is just peeling away a lot worse. I think the hallway still would have been more work to replace the drywall, but it'll be quicker here in the bathroom. This big bathroom repair is still only going to be one piece of drywall. It's 7 feet long and 4 feet tall. I used a multi-tool to cut the seam between the 2 drywall panels and then tore everything out. Man, demo is fun. Now you've got to remember, I wasn't planning on taking this chunk of drywall out, and that's why I have that long, skinny piece there. After I removed all of the original stuff, I cut this into one big square repair with a little tail on top. And this is a perfect example of adjusting on the fly and going with the flow. Cutting the drywall for this repair was great because it was a 7-foot section and it was 4 feet tall, so I only needed to cut it to length. And I highly recommend using a straight edge with your utility knife. If you're new to drywall cutting, you'll get a lot better results than trying to do it freehand. I've seen quite a few comments where people have recommended that I get a drywall screw gun. It basically makes it to where it doesn't sink the screw past the surface of the paper. And that's important because you want the screw head recessed, but you don't want to break the paper face because that takes away a lot of the strength of the whole drywall panel. Now, since this renovation doesn't have an insane amount of new drywall going up, I figured I would just keep working with my drill and impact driver and just do my best to install my screws well. I put some mesh tape down on all of my seams and then applied a coat of joint compound. You guys have seen me do this quite a bit, so I'm not going to voice it over. I'll just let the music play. Enjoy. This small section of drywall next to the vanity is the last piece of damaged drywall to repair in the bathroom. And that is bathroom complete. As always, thanks a ton for the support so far on this series. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in a few days. Bye, everybody.
It's Mike's version.